For global business updates, Rotus Udiri joins us now. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers out there. We begin in Asia, the Nikkei 225, hitting an all-time high of 40,000 points in trading in Japan. Japan's index was that particular index, the Nikkei 225. There's also the Topix and some other indexes in Japan, but the Nikkei 225 was the best performing index last year in 2023. And it hit another high. I mean, it crossed 36,000 points. It was a high not seen since 1989. We talked about that on the show. Now it crossed over 40,000. And what is the reason for this? Foreign investors have been piling into Japanese equities. One, because of a weaker yen. Remember, Japan is an export-oriented country. We went through Toyota's numbers just last week when we were talking about, Rishi Sunak's convoy, President Tinubu's convoy, the need to manufacture at home, and the need to export as well. So the Nikkei 225 hitting a new high over in Asia. Still in Asia, do you know how much Indians spend on weddings? According to a trade body, it's about $130 billion in a year. Indians take their weddings very, very seriously. And if that number is actually accurate, that would put India's wedding industry just behind, I think, energy, finance, and insurance as the fourth largest industry in India, ahead of steel and ahead of technology. There's a website called matrimony.com. dedicated to hooking people up in India. It is a publicly traded company, and its market cap is about $160 million. I mean, if you've watched any Indian soap operas or dramas, you know how heavy they are on family, they are heavy on marriage, and very cultural. So I bring these stats up because, we love stats at Arise News, but I bring this because of a massive pre-wedding party that took place March 1st to the 3rd over the weekend. Anat Ambani, who of course is the son of Mukesh Ambani, who is the chairman of Reliance Industries. He is the richest man in Asia. He's the 11th richest man in the world, about 111, maybe $114 billion fortune. Reliance Industries is everywhere, refining petroleum. They're in telecommunications. They're all over the place. They just signed a deal with Disney to merge media enterprises. That's Disney Plus over in India, and with them as well. Jio, I think, is one of their subsidiaries. Massive, massive company. So, it was a who's who of attendees, people who flew all the way to India to go and attend. Business leaders, technology leaders. Mark Zuckerberg was in attendance, wearing a cultural attire. So was Bill Gates. There's a picture of Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, heading to the wedding as well. I understand Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, was also there because, of course, remembering that deal that was signed. Meta has also invested in Reliance. So it was a really big, and by the way, the wedding isn't until July, right? This was just him spending, bringing people together. In fact, it took place in Juragat, which is one of the states in India. One of their villages there. They actually spent money on feeding villagers, so it was really, really big. But again, the wedding isn't until July. Rihanna was there and apparently performed and, got paid, did about 19 song set. So it was pretty huge. And again, wedding isn't until July, but then it just shows you the pull of Mr. Ambani. I think it was in 2018, one of his other, I think it was his daughter that got married, the Beyonce performed there as well. So moving from Asia now, coming home to Nigeria. Today's This Day newspaper, the headline at the top of the masthead, Nigeria's newspaper of record, you'll see the central bank, expressing confidence in its latest OMO bills. Remember, we talked about this, several times last week about the need for positive real rates of return in Nigeria in order to have more people invest in these bills. Although OMO bills, I should say, are more for banks. These are, and some corporates. retail investors don't participate in OMO bills. This is more of a liquidity mop-up. But I was referring to treasury bills, the last treasury bill auction that took place last week. Either way, it was oversubscribed. Over ₦1 trillion that was offered. By trillion offered, over ₦1 trillion subscription, about 2.8x or so. The 361-day bill for the OMO bills, this is open, by the way, is open market operations. It's a liquidity mop-up exercise by the CBN, but you're also offering securities to these corporates, to these banks, and also for investors as well. 21%. If you calculate the real yield, it's probably even higher than that. So we're looking forward now to the next primary market auction for treasury bills. Again, this is more opportunities for investors, local and foreign, to get their hands on these bills. It allows the CBN to be able to, hopefully, if more people demand for the Naira to get their hands on these securities, the currency appreciates, and then you can have, hopefully some mitigation in where the exchange rate is. Now, that's on the money market side. Money market instruments, of course, less than a year. Fixed income can be more than that. So we go now to equities and TransCorp Power PLC. Again, another opportunity for investors to get their hands on equities, or rather investments in Nigeria. TransCorp Power PLC is going to be listing on the exchange today, March the 4th. Estimated 1.8 trillion naira market capitalization. If you take a look at the details, this is of course in the utility space. This is part. You think about Tony Elumelu and his conglomerate. He's joining Geregu Power now to, on the NGX. So we definitely need more listings on there. If you look at the shareholding structure of TransCorp Power PLC, you'll see that TransCorp, of course, is the majority shareholder in this particular company. And then you've got a couple other companies mentioned there as well. Rich Point Limited, about 33.3%. Woodrock Energy, about 7.4%. But then this is pre-listing, right? This is the shareholding structure, because once the company gets on the exchange, then you have other investors able to get their hands on it. It is an introduction. It is a listing by introduction, and what that is different from an IPO. An initial public offering, new shares are created. With an introduction, it is existing shares already owned by investors that they are selling, into the market to allow more investors to get a hold of. As far as the purpose of the listing, like I mentioned with the OMO bills, treasury bills, this is a chance. What TransCorp Power is bringing forward here is for investors to get to participate in the profits of the company. If you think about the power sector, and I know that the Minister of Power was summoning the heads of discos, I think it was Thursday or Friday, there are challenges in the power sector, but there are also opportunities. So if you have a long-term view of companies like TransCorp Power that will be listing on the exchange, and hopefully more of them in the future, then you can see that hopefully as the power sector improves, there's going to be an opportunity for investors to reap rewards. And, you've seen that with the rise of Geregu Power, for instance. If you look at recent listings on the exchange, this is another, matter that does need to be discussed. In terms of between January of 2022 and today's listing, we only had 4 companies over the last couple of years. So TransCorp Power will be the 5th. You had Boa Foods PLC that listed by introduction back in January of 2022. You had Geregu Power that listed in October of 2022. You had VFD Group, and then which was October 2023, and then Mecure Industries in the pharmaceuticals in November of 2023 that listed as well. So there is a need to have more entities listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange because it deepens the market, it adds depth, it allows more people to be able to invest. So I'm sure we'll be covering that today, that listing of TransCorp Power PLC, and good on them to have a new company on the NGX. We move to Dangote Cement. We've been looking at a number of earnings for a number of companies these past few days. Nestle, Dr. Abati, of course, brought up MTN. MTN's earnings call, by the way, will be at 3 p.m. today. So we'll be hearing from the company as to the way forward. Although I think this was just a one-off in terms of the shareholding, equity being wiped out because of that massive foreign exchange loss. But Dangote Cement did do pretty well. The profit at 527 billion of top line revenue for Dangote Cement. That, of course, mostly coming from Nigeria, although the Pan-African segment of the company did do pretty well in terms of sales. Nigeria, most of its sales were pretty much based on increase in prices. Have you seen cement prices, and you've seen the government summoning cement players together to try and fix a price of 7,000 naira for a bag? We'll see if that works out. If you look at the foreign exchange loss, Dangote Cement also suffered a foreign exchange loss to the tune of about 160 billion naira. So they also were hit. 164 billion naira FX loss that hits down pretty much every company. Almost you'll just see it across the board. But in terms of their costs, you guys take a look at this. Since we're talking about power, and we can link this to Transcorp Power listing. If you look at Dangote Cement's cost highlights, look at fuel and power. Hopefully you have it on the screen. 399 billion naira that this company spent on fuel and power. I mean, there was also raw materials, about 278%, but that fuel and power item, that line item, jumped by almost 50%. It is really imperative that Nigeria sorts out her power issues, because the overhead costs for businesses, not just Dangote Cement, the large corporates like that, your everyday, think of a vulcanizer on the side of the road that tries to pump your tire and how much it costs now to do that. And they'll tell you what, because of fuel and so on and so forth. We really need to sort out power issues. Everyday companies that are just trying to keep the lights on. Arise News, we are a 24/7 channel. You can imagine what it costs us to keep the lights on 24/7 for our viewers around the world. So, you can imagine what the savings would be if companies could be able to, reduce what they spend. But that is a gargantuan figure for Dangote Cement to spend almost 400 billion naira in 1 year on fuel and power costs. Of course, fuel subsidies removed, costs went up. Look at where diesel is now. And I guess finally, just to relieve Nigeria, just going to a lot of entertainment news. Dune 2 Hollywood is smiling now as far as its first blockbuster of this year. This is Antonio Villanueva's second sequel to the Dune movie that came out in 2021. It grossed about $178 million worldwide. I think about 91 million of that came from international markets. The other came from domestic markets in the US. I saw the film over the weekend. Everybody gave it a standing ovation. It looks at, the cinematic views are incredible. It was delayed, by the way. Remember the Hollywood strikes that took place last year? That delayed a number of movies like Dune 2. So they had to push it back to early this year for it to come out. But the reception has been pretty good. The movie costs over $200 million, though. So this has a ways to go in terms of profitability. But Timothée Chalamet, he's been doing pretty well. He had Wonka. He's got Dune 2 now. And so, finally, finally, just to wrap up, Portable. You guys know Portable, the rapper, right? In terms of rebranding and how companies can change things around, I think Portable exemplified this. He's on a new single with Skepta, who by the way is also a Nigerian artist, grime artist in the UK. This is the first time people have seen Portable wearing a fur coat, wearing a suit. He looks pretty incredible. It caused a lot of chatter. And I just thought, what would his fans think about this? Would they say he's sold out? Or by rebranding and changing his wardrobe, is he reaching out to a new audience? So a bit of a case study there in terms of rebranding. That's our update for today.
So I've been calling you, and I've been asking for an opportunity to interrupt. I've listened very carefully to you.
Sorry about that.
Can we, going forward, make this a two-way conversation so that we can have an opportunity to put in a word edgeways? I've listened to you. The issue you raised about the MO subscription, the 361-day subscription being oversubscribed. The question is, yes, it's been advertised as a show of confidence in the Nigerian economy, but can it be sustained? That is the big question. But there are some issues of interest to me, this morning. For example, the Indian economy is growing at the rate of about 8.4%, likely to overtake Japan and Germany. And, that's, for me, is a big story. I wanted to hear your comment about that. about, consumption, about manufacturing growing to about over 11% in India, and what India's future portends. Then OPEC Plus met over the weekend, and they are going to extend, production, till June. Production cuts till June to drive up prices that have not been very stable. I also wanted to hear your comment about that. Chinese leaders are holding what they call the Two Sessions meeting, okay, which is the meeting of government, which will give us an indication of where the economy is going and how much stimulus that China, the Chinese government will provide, particularly with the crisis they have in the property sector. I wanted, I would have loved you to comment on that. I also wanted to ask you about Nigeria, asking Binance to pay $10 billion to Nigeria for what they have done in the foreign exchange market and all that. What actually is the real story in that regard? And then, of course, Binance hitting record highs almost with $64,000 that they have reached. The last time they reached a record high was in 2021 when, crypto reached $68,999. So, I wanted to ask you all of those questions, but, I don't know. But I don't know whether you can refer to, respond to all of that. And then,
of course,
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, very quick. Okay.
Taylor Swift is starting a tour in Singapore from today for the next 6 days. And there is concert economics. I also wanted to know, why has Taylor Swift become the big phenomenon that changes economies from Australia to Singapore to everywhere? I came here with those questions, but,
Okay. All right. So I'll take a very quick stab at them. On the OMO bills, your concerns are well noted. The fact of the matter is, where you are issuing those bills for the CBN, there's an interest cost there. So the extent to which they can continue depends on how much they can continue to pay interest on those OMO bills. On OPEC Plus, yes, it is. It makes sense that they'll want to extend. It makes sense that they will want to extend the supply cuts because inventories are building, particularly in the United States and other nations. So that is supposed to support prices by keeping supply down. Okay, and then for Binance, that Bayo Onanuga retracted himself. He says he was misquoted and that they never mentioned any $10 billion by Binance to be paid to Nigeria. So that's pretty much to touch. And then Taylor Swift is massive. She had a big movie. She's a big star.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for that quick recap. And thank you so much, Rotus, for the updates, Global Business Update this morning. See you again at 11 for Global Business Report.